Hi, it's Mike Swanson. I'm here at Dave's Creek in the Bahamas. And we got something we're putting together I think can really help you a whole lot. We're making a new kind of joint service, but we're also going to have other people writing for it too. And it's going to be different from what both of us are already offering right now. For one thing, it's going to be a little bit lower priced. And for my thing, the difference is I'm not going to have my real portfolio and all this kind of stuff like I do with my main service, but we're trying to really give people information about diversifying and international investing. I think this is more critical than ever with the trends that appear to be lining up or that have been going on now and seem to be in place.
Yeah, I guess being down here in the Bahamas and with one of my mentors being John Templeton, he kind of became famous for being one of the big first international investors. Like he started investing in Japan in the late 50s, early 60s, and right when Japan just started going through their big boom. Remember, everyone talks about China now, but Japan, when Templeton was doing it, from the 60s until 1990, when the bubble burst, they were growing at 9% a year for roughly 30 years. Same kind of thing that China and India are doing right now. And so, our idea has always been is that there's opportunities all over the world. And I think the one problem a lot of Americans have is that all their financial media usually does is talk about the U.S. markets and U.S. stocks. And for a while, I remember the U.S. is still a quarter of the world's economy. It was much higher 30, 40 years ago. I'm sure at one point the U.S. was for about 40%, over 40% of the global GDP. But now these opportunities are spreading around the globe. And if you believe, like I do, that, and Mike does, that the dollar is going to be lower, it's not just gold, precious metals, and resources that are going to bring opportunities. It's going to be investing in these emerging markets. Like, for example, if you look at emerging markets over the last 10 years, well, the U.S. stock market is essentially flat. Many of these markets are up hundreds of percent. For example, India has done that. And if you look since the March bottom, just in the short term, many of these stocks are up hundreds of percent, where the S&P's up 50%. For example, I recommended a few in my newsletter, which I've done this. But so what we decided to do is there's going to be opportunities in these countries, and there's a lot of listed companies in these countries that don't trade in North America, and we always know that there's great opportunities in mid-tiers here in North America. Well, there's mid-tier companies that only trade in Bombay, or only trade in Hong Kong, or only trade in Taiwan. So I have connections through my traveling around the globe. So does Mike through having an international kind of newsletter that's read with subscribers around the world. And I have people located in Australia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Europe, France and UK, a couple contacts in Africa, etc. And we're going to kind of cover global markets from this international perspective with commentators in all markets. And I think it's very unique. And then we'll even go into international taxation, show you the difference between taxation systems in different countries and rules for investing, or where some industries and some companies have more upside, etc. So this is going to give you a real international perspective. And if we're correct and the dollar continues to decline for the next 3, 5, 7, 8 years, this will also be a way to diversify out of that. And we're going to really give you the macro trends in these places from experts in the areas.
Yeah, that's the real key to the concept is, both of us, I guess you'd say we're the editors of it, but we're going to try to get other people to write about specific, more narrow topics.
Yeah.
Like we'll give people the big picture
about
what we think the global trends are, and then get some more specialized people who have knowledge we don't have that's really hard to get, and then be able to share that
with you. And then if this works out, what we want to do is then we'll set up niche letters off of it, basically. Mm-hmm. What we'd like to do is this will give you the macro perspective. Then if you're really interested in an area or sector, you'll be able to have a publication that just deals with that. But that's a little off in the future. But right now, we just want to give you a good global perspective of the global economy and world economies and that sort of thing. And let me give you a quick example. The expert we'll have out of Australia is a friend of mine who's a financier and helps finance a lot of these little mining companies. Well, Australia has a huge junior mining industry, kind of like Canada does. But most people who are, say, bullish on Australian, commodities stocks, basically they don't have access to the Australian market. This guy will give us access to great Australian deals and great opportunities in Australia. And like I said, there's a huge commodity sector there. So if you are bearish on the dollar, bullish on commodities, not only can you get the North American plays, you'll get access to Australian opportunities and that sort of thing. So the whole point, again, is to kind of diversify your opinion and diversify your portfolio out of the United States. Because remember, the U.S., like I said, is about a quarter of the world's GDP. That is just going to shrink. Because if you think that in the next 20 years, the USA grows at 1 or 2% a year, and China and India grow up between 6 to 10% a year, well, they're going to become larger and larger pieces of the pie of the global GDP. Remember, all China and India have to do is essentially have 1/12 of the GDP per capita that the U.S. has, and on a full GDP level, they'll have the same size in their economies.
And like I want to repeat too that this service is different than the ones we already have.
Yeah.
And for one thing, like my main service, I keep it closed most of the time to new people. And
This will be open.
Yeah, and I only sell my main service a few times a year, where this won't be like that. So you don't have to worry about, if I don't buy today or at a certain time or something, that you'll miss out on it. However, since we're just starting this out, we're making the price really, as low as possible, and have a special deal going just for this time period to try to encourage you to get in it now and be like one of our, what's the word for it, charter members.
Charter members,
Charter member
yeah.
to it. And anyway, hope you be a part of it. And
It's so cheap, the initial price would probably be less than this cup of coffee here. So
there's really no reason not to get in it. And,
Yeah.
we'll see you there.